Breaking: Starmer's secret immigration plan just leaked. Starmer's secret immigration plan just leaked 1 minute ago, and what King Charles did when he saw it could end this government by Monday morning. Someone working inside the Home Office just sent secret documents to 3 major newspapers. The plan is so extreme and so harmful to British communities that even Labour members of Parliament are calling it career suicide. We're talking about numbers nobody thought were possible. And when King Charles saw page 7 of those documents, people who work at the palace say he went pale, demanded an emergency meeting with the Prime Minister, and used words no modern king has dared speak to a sitting government. If you want to understand why Britain is about to explode, hit that subscribe button right now, because the next 14 minutes will change how you see this country forever. Here's what sparked the crisis that's tearing through Westminster like a firestorm right now. At 2:47 p.m. yesterday afternoon, a senior civil servant walked into the Telegraph offices in London carrying a brown envelope. Inside that envelope were 43 pages of internal Home Office predictions marked Cabinet Eyes Only. The documents detail Starmer's actual immigration targets for the next 3 years, not the cleaned-up numbers he tells the public. The real plan. His message to cabinet ministers 3 weeks ago was crystal clear. We need immigration reform that reflects modern Britain's values. But the numbers weren't reform. They were revolution. Within 90 minutes of those documents hitting editors' desks, phones across Westminster started ringing off the hook. The whistleblower, who remains anonymous for obvious reasons, allegedly included a handwritten note that simply read, "The British public deserves to know what's being planned in their name." That note is now being analyzed by multiple news organizations trying to identify the source. His exact words in the leaked cabinet memo were chilling. "Public resistance to immigration targets," Starmer wrote, "reflects outdated attitudes that must evolve." The memo then outlined specific numbers: 843,000 new arrivals annually by 2027. That's not a typo, 843,000 people every single year. For context, that's equivalent to adding a city larger than Leeds to Britain annually. But here's what makes it even worse. Hidden in Appendix C of the leaked documents are projections for what they call family reunification multipliers. Government analysts estimate each initial arrival could sponsor an average of 2.3 additional family members over 5 years. Do the math. We're not talking about 843,000 people. We are potentially talking about 1.9 million new arrivals annually once chain migration kicks in. That's a population larger than Birmingham arriving every single year. The response was swift and devastating. Within hours, Conservative MPs were calling emergency press conferences. Reform UK's Richard Tice held up the leaked documents on live television, demanding Starmer's immediate resignation. But it was what happened inside Buckingham Palace that nobody saw coming. According to senior palace sources who spoke on condition of anonymity, King Charles was reviewing his daily briefing papers when his private secretary handed him the leaked Home Office documents at approximately 4:15 p.m. The king read page 7 twice. That page contained projections for housing demand, NHS strain, and school capacity under the proposed immigration levels. One source described Charles' reaction with a single word: fury. But it wasn't just anger. It was betrayal. Charles reportedly told his private secretary, "They promised a measured approach. They promised community consultation. This isn't governance. This is social engineering on a scale that will fracture the nation." Those words, spoken in private, reveal how deeply the king understands what's at stake. The constitutional monarchy survives by staying neutral, by remaining above politics. But when government policy threatens the social fabric of the realm itself, even monarchs must act. Palace lawyers were immediately summoned to review the king's constitutional powers in situations where government actions might threaten national stability. Those consultations lasted until nearly midnight. Meanwhile, British families who've waited months for NHS appointments are being told there's no capacity. Dennis Morrison, a 72-year-old Royal Navy veteran from Portsmouth, waited 9 months for a hip replacement surgery. His GP surgery has 3 doctors serving 8,400 registered patients. "I served this country for 26 years, Dennis told reporters yesterday. "Now I can barely walk, and they tell me there's no appointments available for another 6 weeks. His wife Janet breaks down every time she helps him up the stairs in their council flat. Their grandson posted a video of Dennis struggling to stand that went viral with 3.7 million views. The caption simply read, "This is what they've done to our heroes." While Dennis suffers, the leaked documents show Starmer's government projecting an additional 420,000 people requiring NHS services annually under the new targets. We're talking about hospital wings already operating at 137% capacity being asked to absorb populations equivalent to entire cities. Emergency rooms in Manchester report 12-hour wait times. Cancer patients in Liverpool are having treatments delayed by months. Maternity wards in Birmingham are delivering babies in corridors because there aren't enough beds. And now Starmer wants to add nearly 1 million more people annually to this already collapsing system. The contrast is so brutal, so morally wrong, that even traditionally labor-supporting unions are demanding answers. The Royal College of Nursing released a statement calling the projections mathematically impossible to sustain. Dr. Sarah Williams, a nurse practitioner with 17 years' experience, recorded a tearful video that's been shared 890,000 times. "We're already broken," she said. "We're already working ourselves into the ground. How are we supposed to absorb this? Someone tell me how." Nurses earning £28,000 annually while working double shifts are being told to just work harder, accommodate more patients, and stretch resources further. Meanwhile, Starmer and his cabinet enjoy private healthcare plans funded by taxpayers. The optics are absolutely devastating for any government claiming to represent working people. Teachers are speaking out too. The National Education Union reports that 67% of primary schools in England already have pupils arriving who speak little to no English. Teachers in Bradford describe classrooms with 14 different languages being spoken. "I became a teacher to educate children," said one anonymous educator from Luton. "Now I spend half my time trying to communicate basic instructions through Google Translate. This isn't sustainable. This isn't education." Then something unprecedented happened that nobody saw coming. King Charles broke 70 years of royal protocol and demanded a face-to-face meeting with the Prime Minister. Not next week, not when schedules permit. Immediately. At 6:30 p.m. yesterday evening, Starmer's motorcade pulled through the gates of Buckingham Palace for what was scheduled as a brief 15-minute courtesy discussion. That meeting lasted 97 minutes. Palace staff described the atmosphere as glacial. At one point, raised voices were heard echoing through normally silent corridors. "Your Majesty must understand modern economic realities require difficult decisions," Starmer reportedly argued. The King's response, according to two separate sources present in an adjacent room, was delivered with icy precision. "I understand that British citizens who built this nation deserve better than being treated as obstacles to your social experiments. Explain to me how communities already stretched to breaking point will survive this." What happened next has never been confirmed officially, but three separate sources paint the same picture. Starmer attempted to leave the meeting early, standing up and gathering his papers. King Charles remained seated and simply said, "Prime Minister, I have not dismissed you." Those 6 words stopped Starmer cold. For those unfamiliar with royal protocol, the monarch dismisses visitors, not the other way around. By refusing to end the meeting, Charles was asserting his constitutional authority in a way no modern king has dared. Starmer sat back down. The discussion continued for another 40 minutes. Constitutional experts immediately recognized the significance. Professor Michael Henderson of Cambridge said, "The monarch requesting explanations from government policy represents the most direct royal intervention in politics since the abdication crisis. Charles isn't just concerned, he's drawing a line." The optics are catastrophic for Starmer. When the head of state himself demands answers about your immigration policy, you've lost the moral authority to govern. When the king himself extends a meeting by force of constitutional authority, you're not just facing political opposition, you're facing institutional rebellion. The domino effect began before Starmer's car even left the palace grounds. Financial markets opened this morning with sterling falling 2.3% against the dollar within the first hour of trading. Currency traders cited political instability and immigration policy concerns as primary factors. £18 billion was wiped from the FTSE 100 before lunch. Pension funds lost value. Working families' savings took hits. All because investors see what Starmer refuses to acknowledge. This plan is economically insane. Inside the Labour Party, fractures became chasms. Within 3 hours of the leaked documents going public, 7 backbench MPs issued statements distancing themselves from the proposals. Rosie Duffield, Labour MP for Canterbury, didn't mince words. "These numbers don't reflect the manifesto I campaigned on or the promises we made to voters. I cannot support this direction." 2 junior ministers requested urgent meetings with the chief whip. WhatsApp groups with names like Common Sense Labour started forming, with 37 MPs sharing concerns about electoral suicide. International reactions ranged from confused to horrified. Poland's conservative government issued a statement praising British families resisting demographic replacement. Italy's Giorgia Meloni subtly criticized Western European nations abandoning their citizens for globalist ideology. Even France, normally diplomatic, saw Marine Le Pen tweet about Britain's wake-up call. Hungary's Viktor Orban went further, offering to host a European summit on defending national sovereignty against globalist immigration agendas. The European political establishment watched Britain's crisis with a mixture of schadenfreude and genuine concern. If Britain's Labour government could collapse over immigration policy, what did that mean for centre-left parties across the continent? Social media exploded into total warfare. #StopStarmer's invasion trended #1 in the UK for 6 straight hours. Videos of overcrowded schools, packed GP waiting rooms, and housing estates bursting at the seams went viral. One TikTok showing a Kent primary school with 47% of students unable to speak English as their first language hit 4.2 million views in 8 hours. Protests erupted across Manchester, Birmingham, Leeds, and Newcastle. Not hundreds of people, thousands. British flags, placards demanding referendums, chants of "Our country, our choice." Working-class Labour heartlands were rising up against their own government. Inside number 10 Downing Street, the atmosphere transformed from confident governance to complete panic. Ministers who days earlier defended Starmer's vision now avoided television interviews. Rachel Reeves cancelled 3 scheduled BBC appearances. Angela Rayner suddenly had diary conflicts preventing media rounds. Cabinet meetings devolved into shouting matches about who leaked the documents and how to control the bleeding. Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner allegedly confronted Starmer directly in front of 8 witnesses. "You've destroyed us," she said, according to sources present. "We can't defend this. We won't defend this." Health Secretary Wes Streeting was overheard telling colleagues, "If we don't pivot immediately, we are looking at electoral annihilation." Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson reportedly broke down crying during a cabinet meeting, saying her constituency office in Sunderland had received 847 complaints in 24 hours. "These are lifelong Labour voters," she sobbed. "They're calling me a traitor to the working class." WhatsApp groups normally reserved for policy coordination became conspiracy channels plotting leadership challenges. Messages leaked to journalists revealed the desperation. "He's lost the public, lost the palace, and he's losing us," wrote one cabinet minister whose name is being protected. Another message from a senior Labour MP simply read, "Monday. No confidence vote. It's time." The question isn't if they'll move against Starmer, it's whether they move fast enough to save the party before voters do it for them. Downing Street aides describe Starmer as defiant but isolated, convinced the critics simply don't understand his brilliant long-term strategy. But strategy means nothing when your own MPs are preparing your political obituary. One senior advisor admitted to journalists, he thinks he's Churchill standing alone against populism. He doesn't realize he's Neville Chamberlain waving a piece of paper nobody believes. But here's the layer that could bring down the entire government within days. Leaked internal polling data from Labour headquarters shows the party falling to 3rd place nationally for the first time in modern history. If these documents are real, and if they show what 3 separate Labour sources claim, then we're witnessing the complete collapse of a governing party barely 6 months into power. The private polling tested voter reactions to the leaked immigration targets. The results were apocalyptic. In traditional labor strongholds, support cratered by an average of 23 percentage points. Working-class voters in the Northeast who delivered Labor's landslide are abandoning the party in numbers that pollsters described as statistically unprecedented. But wait, because there's another layer to this polling data that's even more devastating. The survey asked respondents whether they trusted Labour to protect British communities and culture. In 2024, 54% said yes. Today, that number sits at 19%. Think about what that means. Labour built its entire identity on representing working families, protecting communities, and defending British values. This leaked plan does the opposite of all three simultaneously, dumping nearly 1 million new arrivals annually into communities already struggling with housing shortages, school overcrowding, and stretched public services. The optics of that would be absolutely devastating in any election. But worse, the documents show government projections admitting these communities will face significant adjustment periods and temporary resource constraints. Translation: your schools will be overcrowded, your hospitals overwhelmed, your housing unaffordable, and the government knows it and planned for it anyway. Page 19 of the leaked documents contains a section titled Managing Community Resistance. The language is chilling. Government planners discuss communication strategies to counter localized opposition and partnership with civil society organizations to promote integration narratives. In plain English, propaganda campaigns to silence British families who complain about their communities being transformed without their consent. Meanwhile, Nigel Farage and Reform UK are conducting a masterclass in political opportunity. While Starmer hides behind Downing Street gates and Labour MPs plot in shadows, Farage stood in front of television cameras this morning looking like a man vindicated by history itself. His tone was measured, almost gentle, but his message was a dagger through Labour's heart. For years, they called us extreme for wanting controlled borders. For years, they called us racist for defending British communities. Today, those leaked documents prove we were right all along. No screaming, no conspiracy theories, just simple truth delivered with devastating effectiveness. Reform UK membership applications crashed their website 3 times in 12 hours. Donations flooded in from working-class voters who felt betrayed by Labour and ignored by Conservatives. Former Labour councillors in Yorkshire and the Midlands announced party switches live on regional television. For the first time in British political history, Reform UK isn't just a protest vote or a fringe movement. They're a legitimate governing party in waiting. The polls confirm the earthquake. Latest Westminster voting intention: Conservatives 29%, Reform UK 28%, Labour 26%. A three-way race, a fractured nation, and Reform surging on the back of Labour's self-inflicted catastrophe. Farage isn't just winning the argument anymore. He's winning the country. Conservative headquarters is watching nervously as their traditional voters increasingly see Reform as the true opposition to Labour's radical agenda. The next 72 hours are absolutely critical for Britain's future. Emergency cabinet meetings are scheduled throughout the weekend. Labour MPs are demanding Starmer address the Parliamentary Labour Party Monday morning to explain himself or face a no-confidence vote. King Charles has requested another meeting with the Prime Minister, this time with the Home Secretary present. Palace sources say the King wants detailed explanations about how government conducted impact assessments for these immigration levels. Constitutional lawyers are working overtime analyzing whether the monarch has powers to formally request policy reviews or even dissolve Parliament in extreme circumstances. The question is no longer whether Starmer can survive this politically. It's whether Labour can survive this as a credible governing party. Britain is watching its political establishment crack apart in real time. Communities from Cornwall to Scotland are united in fury at politicians who promised one thing and planned another. This crisis will be studied for decades as the moment working-class Britain finally said enough to politicians who stopped listening. At its epicenter stands Keir Starmer, who looks increasingly isolated, increasingly defiant, and increasingly finished. His approval rating has fallen to 22%, the lowest for any prime minister this early in their term since polling began. Even Gordon Brown during the financial crisis maintained higher numbers. So here's the question that matters. Does Starmer resign before he's forced out? Or does he cling to power while his party implodes around him? Did King Charles just save Britain from demographic suicide? Or did he overstep constitutional boundaries in ways that damage the monarchy? What do you think? Will Labour survive this crisis, or are we watching a governing party destroy itself? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We read every single one. And if this story shocked you as much as it shocked us, share it with everyone who needs to see what's really happening in Westminster right now. The mainstream media won't tell you about leaked documents showing nearly 1 million new arrivals annually. They won't show you the palace confrontation. They won't admit Labour's polling collapse. But we will. Because tomorrow morning, new revelations drop about what Starmer really said to King Charles in that 97-minute meeting. And what you'll hear will make today's crisis look like a warm-up act. We're talking about constitutional powers being invoked that haven't been used in over a century. We're talking about emergency parliamentary procedures that could force a general election within weeks. Hit subscribe now because Britain's constitutional crisis is just getting started, and the next 48 hours will determine whether this government survives until